I have. I can put it on YouTube. Okay, Genesis 1:26. It's the passage that we're in today. Here's what it says. Then God said, let us make man in our image. Boom, stop. Okay, don't look at this anymore. Okay, that's where we get it from. God simply says, let us make man in our image. Now, if you were reading this in, wow, that was kind of a weird voice inflection. If you were reading this in ancient Near Eastern times, so the Israelites, like Moses gives them this document, they're reading it now, and they say, or they're reading it, they would probably know exactly what you're talking about. Okay. And the image of God is this idea that kings had, or this it's something that kings had in the ancient Near East. Okay, so you have Israel. I'm going to draw the Mediterranean Sea over here with Egypt, Israel with the Little Jordan River, the Dead Sea. Then you have Babylon, and over here you have like these two rivers. You guys recognize this map that I'm drawing up here?
You draw like Mr. Smith.
I've heard that. So here's the map of the Middle East, or the ancient Near East. Okay. And the image of God would belong to the kings of the nations. So maybe the Egyptian king would have one. Okay. Babylonian king would have the image of God. Okay. And it's this idea that they were specially created to rule. Okay. Specially created to rule. Okay. That's kind of the idea of what the image of God is coming in. So this idea is coming into Israelites who were just slaves coming out of Egypt. And they would think, well, slaves don't have the image of God. If the image of God is to rule, then slaves definitely don't have it. And the image of God would be the special thing that God has given you, the special task to rule over people and to rule over a land. So you can imagine that you think whoever has the image of God is in power over you. They're making you make bricks to build their buildings. They're whipping your back if you're not working hard enough. You're living in the low income housing in Egypt. You're not getting the best food. You're a slave. You're always being told what to do. This is the life of an Israelite. Okay, and during the 400 years that they were enslaved in Egypt, and they would think, well, the people in charge of me are those that have God's divine right to rule over me. They're commissioned by God to rule. Okay. So let's read Genesis 1:26 here and see if it's just the kings who are given this divine right to rule. Share screen. Then God said, let us make who in our image? Kings? No, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion. Okay. Think about this. You're an Israelite. You're a slave. The image of God people are the kings who are called the rule. And you're told that man, not just kings, but man is given the right to rule, to have dominion. Okay. This is a very comforting thing for Israelites to hear. Okay, this is not how they viewed their humanity. So that's the first thing that I want to mention about the image of God, that it's comforting. Why is it comforting? Because man is commissioned to rule. as image bearers, not as slaves. And if man is a slave, then that's not right. Like that's not the right way things should function. Now, of course, man can be a servant. Man can be subdued or in under someone's authority, and that's totally fine. That's totally fits with the idea of authority in the Bible. But the idea that there's this categorical difference of some men have image of God and are called to rule over creation, and some aren't. Some are called to be a part, almost animalistic. That's not biblical. But instead, it separates this idea that man as a whole is in charge of creation, has dominion, rules. Okay. And who gives this task to man? It's God. Let's read where I'm getting some of this stuff here. Okay. So, and let them have dominion. I'm reading starting right here. And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created him. And God blessed them. And God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. We'll talk about this part later. Okay. And fill the earth. Okay. But then some more language comes here, ruling language. And subdue the earth and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. So this line, have dominion, is said twice here. You guys see it where I highlighted it? Okay, let's see some more nods from some more people. You guys see that where I'm highlighting? It's talking about dominion. Up here, it also says dominion. That's twice that it says it. Okay, this is Hebrew poetry that this is kind of typical Hebrew poetry. It will sandwich these ideas in between these two important lines. And the two important lines here is let man rule. Okay, it doesn't say let kings rule or let Xerxes rule. It's comforting. Okay, what else do I want to mention here? Okay, now let's talk about different views of the image of God. Okay, and then I'm going to present an argument here. So different views. We have the essence view and we have the function view. Okay, these are two different definitions that theologians have used. The essence view talks about who you are. Okay, who man is. And the function view talks about what man does. Can you guys see now? I need to stop sharing my screen. Who man is, what man does. Okay, and oftentimes theologians will say that who man is someone who can reason. Okay, or someone who has someone who is like a spirit or has a soul or an immaterial. This is like their stamp of humanity, kind of like a seal. When you put like a seal on someone or a stamp on their hand, it's like, this is who I am. This is who I am. I'm made in the image of God. Okay. And then this one, and then this also could be the idea that this could also be the idea of position, I think. Position in relation to creation. So a ruler would be someone. No, that's going to be more in function. Never mind. Forget the last part. Mr. Sparker, you just told me I can't forget it. It's okay. You will by tomorrow. This is function. And function is more of the idea of what you do. So this is more of like the task that is given to rule, to have dominion, to subdue the earth, This would also include basically the task of humanity. I'm trying to think of other ways to describe it. I mean, the best way to describe it is rule. Okay, so these are the two camps here. And so let's look at a couple people who have described image of God in these two camps, in these two categories. So Ravi Zacharias is gonna describe the image of God very explicitly here. Now hear what he says about it. Oh, you guys probably can't hear. Let me share computer sound. Okay.
The first thing I want to remind you of this is that we are told, according to the scriptures, prior to the resurrection story, that God is the author of human essence.
Boom, right there. He goes right for it. He says, God's the author of human essence. Okay. Now I want to hear this line from N.T. Wright, where he says something about creation. Is he focusing on essence or function here?
Spirituality or reason, or theologians of reflecting God into the world, so that the image of God is not, I think, something about us, our memory or our conscience or our imagination or our spirituality or our reason, or theologians have tried all that, as though there was something about us which is exactly like God. No doubt a lot of that is true, but I think it's a much more creative, much more dynamic picture, the priests and the kings, or kings and queens, reflecting God to the world and the world to God. And I see the human vocation, the Christian vocation.
Okay. He's describing it. Does anyone want to try to take a crack on how he's describing it? Is he focusing on essence or function? Jack, oh yeah. So he's not saying essence, and here's how you know he's not saying essence, because right here he says, it's not something about us. It's not something about us and he's talking about these things that are in our essence, like our conscience or spirituality or reason. But what he's saying is it's more dynamic. And what he's describing, I know it's hard to see there, is it's our job, it's our vocation, it's what kings and queens did. That's kind of the difference. Okay. Now, my argument today is going to be this. Okay, so pay attention, because you guys know I like to ask about my arguments on my test. My argument today is that it's both. Okay. Mr. Swiggert's argument, both essence and function. Not everyone would agree with this, okay? So this you definitely need to say this is my argument, not just what all Christians universally believe. Does that make sense? You guys clear about that? Okay. So I'm going to say both essence and function. I'm going to say that there is something categorically different about us than animals. That we are actually created, and we are created special in a sense. Okay. But I'm going to argue that the focus of Genesis is what we do with our essence, what we do with our special essence, and that's going to emphasize our special function. So Genesis 1 is going to, I think, assert some things about our essence, but it's primarily going to talk about our function. Okay, and I already demonstrated that I believe that primary function is to rule creation. Okay, that there's this authority structure from God to man to the rest of creation. So who's in charge of cats in this world? It's simple. Just you can say, you go ahead and unmute and just say it. Who's in charge of cats?
We are.
Yeah, we are. That's exactly right. So when you name your cat, that's actually you're actually being an image bearer, or actually doing the task of what an image bearer is called to do. Okay, who is in charge of the forests and the fields? Man is. We're called to organize it, to to cause fruit to come out from the ground, or plants like farming. That's a good thing. That's an image of God task. Okay, who's in charge of exploring the world? We are. This is our task. This is what you guys do at school. This is how you are image bearers, even in this class right now. Well, not as much this class because we more explore who God is, but in science class, you explore what the world is. Okay, that is you being an image bearer as you subdue creation, as you rule over creation. That involves exploring creation. That involves in taming creation, like your cat. That involves gardening. Okay, that involves using creation to trade and to do all these things. Like this is the job of mankind. Okay, um, maybe it's politics, and then you can break down like your specific job, and you doing that specific job is part of you being an image bearer, or is the function of you being an image bearer. Okay. So what is creation? I've talked about a couple examples of this. I've talked about your cat Fluffy. I've talked about fields where we're doing farm work or things like that. This could be other animals like snakes or serpents. Why am I using this word serpents to describe that we're supposed to rule over serpents? Why am I saying this? I'm being very specific about this word.
Because God turned Satan into a serpent.
Not exactly, because we learn something about the serpent before the serpent's consequences. Let's go there. So John Luke's on the right path. But let's go there. We're going to be in Genesis chapter 3. Okay. And let's see what the serpent is. Is the serpent described as the devil, as the spiritual angel who is fallen? Let's see. When the serpent's first introduced, how is the serpent described? The serpent is described as a beast of the field. Now, the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field, but it's not saying that the serpent was an angel. Now, it could be. The serpent could be a spirit. The serpent definitely, we learn later, is the devil. But think about it just in the context of Genesis chapter 3. The serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field that the Lord God had made. Who is supposed to be in charge? Who is supposed to keep creation tamed and in line? Adam and Eve, mankind. And so what we're going to see when we study this on Tuesday is that the sin of Eve isn't just her own greed or her own desire to have knowledge, okay? But the sin of Adam and Eve is actually going to be a disordering of man's job to rule. The serpent is going to be ruling over man. Okay? That is a huge part of Genesis 3 that we often don't see. Because we don't have this context of the structure that is demonstrated in Genesis 1. We have God, we have man, and we have the rest of creation. Okay. Now, there are some spiritual beings mentioned in Genesis 1. I already talked about that. The sun. The sun is somewhere in here as a lesser ruler of God and a ruler over the day. But the serpent is not described as a lesser god. The serpent's described as a creature. And so man is called to rule over this creature, and they don't. We'll talk about that more on Tuesday. Okay. Okay. What do I want to do now? The image of God is also the reason that is given to Cain to not kill another man. Okay, so we have Cain and we have Abel. Okay, and they're both image bearers. That just means they both bear the image of God. We'll give them creepy, they look like creepy little aliens. I don't like it, I just give them noses. I like the smile, not the noses. Okay, so this is Cain and Abel, the brothers that we'll interact with in chapter 4 of Genesis. Okay, and the reason that Cain shouldn't kill Abel is because they're image bearers. Now, does the verse focus, this was in your homework, does the verse focus on the fact that Cain's an image bearer, and so image bearers shouldn't kill people? Or does it focus on Abel's an image bearer, and so Cain shouldn't kill an image bearer? What's the focus of that verse? Go, and I'll repeat the question here.
Is there an all of above box?
No, because even though there's an all of above box of like, yes, this both might be true, the verse is going for something specific. Does that make sense, Ben? Although they could both be true, what I'm asking is, what is the verse going for? So you can even open up your homework and look at that. Okay, because I might have you do this on a test later. Is Cain not supposed to kill Abel because Cain's an image bearer, or because Abel's an image bearer? What's the focus of that verse?
Abel's an image bearer.
Yes, Ben is right. Okay, so you can even go to that verse, and it talks about how, and it's kind of confusing because it's not read in context, but if you were able to see it in context, you're able to see that because, now I'm not saying Cain isn't an image bearer, but because Abel is an image bearer, that's why you shouldn't kill him. So this idea of being an image bearer actually gives us value and purpose to live. Okay. It gives us value and purpose to live and to not kill people, but not just to not kill people. Okay. But this is, and I'm going to be cheesy here with the heart, but the fact that, so this is you, but the fact that you're interacting with a bunch of image bearers throughout your day, let's say this is Caleb Eby and this is Ben Eby. Okay. Why should Ben treat Caleb nice? Well, because Caleb's an image bearer. Why should, why should you interact with your teachers? and of course, I can always guilt trip you into the teacher example. I'm not trying to do that. Why should you interact with your teachers well? Why should you love them? Because they're image bearers. Okay. Why should you interact with your siblings? Do you interact with your dog in the same way as you do a person? No, and you shouldn't. Okay, you interact with a human because a human's special. And I know that's cheesy. I'm not trying to be cheesy. I'm trying to be biblical here. This is a biblical reason for not killing people. This is also a biblical reason for loving people. And then Christ even makes that command harder when he says, love your enemies. Why should we love our enemies? Well, one reason is because they're image bearers. Okay. So this isn't something that, yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I think I've preached enough today. Let me stop the recording.